Mill invited me on family trips after years of no. I later found they invited me as a free nanny and maid. I'm 29F and married to 33M Ryan for 2 years. He never takes me on his annual family trips, but everything else is fine. Literally ever. I've never understood why he does it, our only dispute. We discovered his family's 2-day trip our first year together. I thought it was a cool ceremony given my unhealthy family. We never did this because my parents divorced. After we married, I looked forward to family events like this. I expected him would ask me to go the second year since we were dating. Live together. We're serious. His lack of a question was awkward, but then, without thinking, I assumed he was waiting for us to get married to go on these trips. Even after 2 months of marriage last year, he didn't ask me to leave. After being disappointed, I inquired why he hadn't invited me on vacation before he went. He seemed confused and predicted I wouldn't join them. I don't know why Dad did it, because I always told him I liked family vacations and would have joined. 1. He knew my divorced childhood was odd. I liked such things. I liked his family. His parents, older sister, husband, and kids liked me. I liked everyone, so I didn't understand why he didn't want me to join. Last year we battled before he left for vacation since he hadn't invited me despite my interest. That humiliated me, so I was furious. I approached him and argued over it to find out. We fought a few days before he left for the trip with his family, and I questioned him why he hadn't invited me despite my interest. As my spouse, he should have known I wanted. Go visit his relatives with him. He finally admitted that his family didn't want me with him, not because he thought I wouldn't. That hurt since I thought I got along with them, and they never appeared uncomfortable around me. That surprised me because they always treated me like family when I visited. He said he gave me another excuse and lied to spare my feelings, but his family still didn't want me to come with them. They didn't mind me visiting on special events like holidays. Travel was vital. They were unprepared. They wanted to spend a few years with me, get to know me, and then invite me because they believed it would be hard. Since they were high school sweethearts and my husband's family knew him, my sister-in-law's husband's presence on these trips was weird. Despite the sorrow, I had to accept that they weren't ready for me. If they didn't like me, I couldn't force myself. Not Ryan's fault, therefore I couldn't blame him. I had to concede. I let him go without saying anything because my sentiments were confused. After he left for a week, I thought about how to make myself part of the family, so my in-laws may take me on trips without having to be formal. Because I didn't get along with my family, I went out of my way to understand their perspective and make them feel comfortable around me for the following few months. I don't want in-law conflict either. You undoubtedly know I'm a people pleaser. I attempted to be courteous to my in-laws after my spouse told me they weren't comfortable with me. I wanted them to like me. After they returned from the vacation, Ryan told them about our earlier chat, and we had a family session where they apologized for not inviting me and explained that Ryan and his sister were usually busy and didn't have time for their family. Investment banker Ryan is worried, and his sister and her husband are doctors. They're usually busy. Although they visit their parents periodically, they wanted to maintain this practice. They sincerely apologized for not recognizing this would exclude me. They also promised to accommodate me and make me feel like family. After that important conversation, I went out of my way to get to know them, even without my husband visiting his parents. I would try to visit every 2 weeks. We had fun whenever I visited. That's my interpretation. My company impressed them. Anyone in my situation would have felt the same because they feigned enthusiasm and were hard to spot. Since they liked my visits, I kept going. I visited occasionally. They promised to accommodate me and make me feel at home. Thus, I had no reason to suppose these visits bothered them. This year they told my husband why they didn't invite me again. That broke my heart since I attempted to help the family as their daughter-in-law but failed. I was upset when I learnt this a few days ago since I believed my in-laws and I were getting along and I could join the family trip this year. Ryan informed me last week that the family would visit California this year for annual getaway. Was excited since I thought I'd be on that trip this year, but he kept talking about it without mentioning me. When I asked him if I would be on the trip this year, he seemed upset and said his parents hadn't mentioned anything about it, but I knew he was lying, so after some convincing, he told me that his parents had said they were done with me because I visited them too often and needed space. I was accused of overdoing it and imposing. Despite their apparent space request, they never clarified what they were talking about and seemed to enjoy it every time I visited or spoke to them. Ryan told me he attempted to convince his parents, but they were adamant and insisted I wasn't welcome this year. I was angry and battled Ryan because I wanted him to skip the trip if I couldn't since his parents were unfair. They promised to get to know and include me. I worked hard to know them. Their behavior indicated that I was troubling them. I thought it offensive. I told Ryan to stop treating me this way. I didn't appreciate his parents' behavior, but he said he needed this annual vacation to spend time with his family and wanted to take me, but his parents said no. He couldn't argue. He reported seeing both sides, which was ridiculous because I don't think his parents are right and think they're fickle-minded, making me look bad for wanting to get along with them. Instead of lying, they should have told me they didn't want me. After a large fight, I told him I didn't want him to go on the trip and wanted him to defend me, but he said I was foolish and petty and went. How this family treated me after he left on vacation disappointed me. My parents have never liked me, so I thought my in-laws would like me more. My mom and I hardly talk anymore. I admired Ryan's family and wanted in. I understand wanting their approval. I may have overdone it, but they promised to make me feel like family. I also saw my sister-in-law's hubby treated me differently. All I wanted was their love. The attempt was correct. These thoughts kept coming to me, and I felt terrible since I thought Ryan didn't care about me either. I could forgive his family's mistreatment, but not him. I pondered leaving before he came back from his. I was surprised he called 2 days after leaving. I didn't answer the phone the first time since I was upset at him, then he texted me an emergency. Afterward, he FaceTimed me. I wasn't expecting his family. His parents, sister, and brother-in-law supported him, unwilling to speak. In response to my confusion, he said everyone was here to apologize to me. Very surprising. I also learned that he told his parents what I said, so they recognized they were wrong, wanted to fly down and stay with them for the trip. His parents told me that Ryan had spoken to them and that they recognized I was being treated unfairly and were ashamed of their selfishness and lack of consideration for how I would feel. My mother-in-law cried as they apologized, telling me that Ryan had told them that I had only been trying to get them to me and that they had been selfish and inconsiderate. They wanted to make it up to me by inviting me on the rest of the trip and would be heartbroken if I declined. People would accept my refusal. Really wanted me involved. I felt mistreated previously, so the phone call confused me. I love Ryan and second chances. Work with him was my desire. I agreed to consider. I proposed joining them that night. I believe everyone deserves a second chance. I got tickets and flew down. I was welcomed at the airport by them and we drove to an Airbnb, which astonished me since we were rich. Due to the location's remoteness, they had to rent an Airbnb because there were no nearby hotels. Surrounding hotels were empty and terrible. In retrospect, being near the beach yet far from everything was great. The only negative was doing everything yourselves. Ryan and my husband's family don't do it. My parents rarely came home, so I did everything from cooking to laundry. This continued as I grew up. Although we employ a housekeeper, I prefer doing some things myself. In his household, anyone could ask for anything. Since Airbnb didn't clean or provide room service, they cooked and cleaned. Even though the trip was only 8 days, they didn't like it. So after I arrived, they assigned me all those jobs stealthily so I wouldn't notice. I'm not stupid, poor them. I like people, but I won't surrender my dignity to babysit and cook for free. They said no one could help them when they arrived. All hotels were full, so they couldn't move. Since they were fatigued and supposed to be on vacation, they were irritated that they had to do everything themselves. After I realized their hint, they tried to give me all the work. Pretended to help me but said they were excited to have me since I was the best. Then they made the mistake of asking me to watch my sister-in-law's kids the next morning while they toured. I went crazy when I discovered what was occurring. I was told there were no unoccupied motels late at night. I said I should stay home if this was the real reason they invited me on vacation. We attempted to calm me down by stating we didn't mean to offend me, but I understood and they only wanted a free nanny and cook. I wouldn't tolerate that, so I said I'd stay as family or leave. After that, they admitted that they had only invited me to provide a babysitter for my sister-in-law's children, since theirs had collapsed and could not accompany them on vacation. My mother-in-law's idea was unique disrespect. I was enraged when I realized the real reason they invited me, which contradicted their apologies, but my in-laws maintained they meant it. They told me they would be upset if I went because they wanted me for the rest of the vacation, and it didn't matter if I didn't want to help with chores, they would do everything, and I could relax. I stayed after their apologies and pleas, provided they didn't ask. After receiving a free vacation, I knew I would avenge them because they expected me to suffer this contempt, and I planned our return home. Since they treated me well, they did all the chores while I relaxed for the holiday. Revengeful, I reclined in my chamber. I knew everyone was upset at me since I maintained my word and didn't work by the time we went to the airport yesterday, our last day. Their kindness to me was seen through. Fortunately, I had a plan to show them fighting me was worthless. A few minutes after we boarded the plane yesterday, 2 of my buddies joined us, fulfilling my goal. They, with us throughout the operation. 2 of my in-laws understood after I greeted them. I stayed away from my family because I booked my flights separately. I've been telling my pals about how they mistreated me by thinking I'd be their servant for the vacation and take advantage of my sympathy, since I flew down here. We went home and drove since they were upset too. I was one seat behind my in-laws when they saw me with my friends and asked what was up. I informed Ryan about my previous 2 approvals. Days. I organized this with my friends the day after they insulted me. One friend lived in California, so it was easy for her, but the other had to travel down, but it was worth it. They flew me here and took me home since I didn't want to fly. Instead of flying them to my hometown, we arranged this to show them their place. I treated them well. After showing me their true colors, they should see mine. After explaining everything to Ryan, he called me petty and didn't want me to go on a cross-country road trip with my friends when we got home. It would be inconvenient for him. But I assured him it didn't matter. After he proved me he had no spine and could never stand up to his parents for me, I left him. Another reason I asked my friends to join me on the trip home was to have more backing when I confronted him and told him what to do. My lawyer prepared the divorce paperwork after we chatted. I would file for divorce after the road trip. I didn't want to go home with him after everything. He had allowed his parents mistreat me before, but this was too much. I had friends who supported me. They informed him I was set in my ways. Since they were here, he couldn't even get me to give them another chance. On the way home, everyone was furious, and when I told him I was leaving, we didn't talk for the flight, which I appreciated. I was delighted to see my friends again, so I didn't mind sitting behind him. After college, I broke up with these 2 women from middle school. After we started dating, Ryan said I shouldn't be around them. I did as he asked since I'm weak. He thought these 2 ladies were manipulating and that I was their doormat, which was stupid. He convinced me. He was my priority, therefore I ignored everything else. After learning he was spineless, I notified my friends who supported me. We parted ways. Since I wouldn't be with Ryan or his family, I bought new clothes on the road instead of packing. They didn't talk to me after landing yesterday. After I told my friends I was leaving him on the aircraft, they stopped talking to me. He sent me a long text this morning complaining about my behavior. He told me he was willing to admit that his parents were cruel to me and that he was wrong to not defend me, but he wanted me to think about it, this from his perspective, and couldn't dishonor his parents. His mother just told me why she wanted me to visit my sister-in-law, so he didn't know what she was doing. He didn't realize they wanted me to cook, clean, and babysit, so I shouldn't blame him. He wanted me to go on this road trip and return because he felt bad about everything and wanted to make things right. Unless I did it, I never loved him, which puzzles me. Part of me thinks I should talk to him because I never gave him a chance to explain, because we didn't want a scene on the way home. So I told my buddies. They vehemently opposed talking to him and urged me to block and move on. Although they're right, I desire a second opinion to ensure accuracy. AITA for leaving my husband for not defending me to his parents? Update 1. Thanks for the feedback, even the criticism. Ryan's manipulation was a warning flag from the start, but my rose-colored glasses blinded me. After my friends and you helped me realize it, I won't go back. After Ryan severed our connection, I blocked him and am going on a road trip with my friends to reconnect. Update 2. My lawyer said I can file the divorce petition after the road trip because the documentation is ready. This helps. Because I'm returning home in a few days and divorcing. No word from my in-laws or Ryan. I'm delighted he didn't call since I don't want to talk. My friends and I enjoyed the road trip, remembering the good old days. It's crazy I left this for Ryan. Update 3. 2 months after my road trip. The divorce settlement negotiations began a while ago. Things are going great because Ryan's family told him I was the bad person and he didn't need me back. Good thing they did since it made my divorce smoother. He behaves like I'm the villain and doesn't want anything from me. He's too good. Good for him, we deserve better.